Dear students, today I am going to talk about the evolution of Indian concept of human rights. Let's talk about the introductions. The vast literature that has grown in the West around the concept of rights is in itself an indication that the concept had to be defended and philosophically justified. In the long history of the Indian civilization, the freedom of thought and speech, the freedom of one's life in the light of one's belief, the freedom of association, the freedom of public debate between the contending philosophical schools were taken to be the natural foundations of human relationships. It was always taken for granted, and consequently, there is hardly any literature on the idea of rights. When the word adhikar was used to convey a similar sense, it always had a much deeper meaning. However, the freedom of the individual in the Western societies was secured after a long and bitter struggle against the church and the state. In India, those freedoms were seen as the very substance of human existence. After this, let's talk about the ancient perspective of Indian human rights. The Indian philosophy characterized the foundation in the ancient conception of dharma and danda, which regulate the governance of state and its citizen. The concept of Sanatan Dharma, which laid down these foundations in ancient civilizations, is 2000 years older than Western Christianity with a central theocratic doctrine. It laid down the foundation of a same society in ancient Indian civilization, encompassing a moral code, righteousness, and responsibilities. It was certainly wider and broader than the concept of religion as used in the Western historiography. Besides, Vedas, Upanishads, Mahabharata, and the Bhagavad Gita also furnish philosophical foundation for subsequent social developments, thereby enriching the doctrine of human rights. Upanishads, emphasizing the individual self and its truth, say that there is nothing higher than the person. Mahabharata also emphasizes the point that without ethical and moral principles, there is no true happiness and a society cannot hold together. The principles such as truth, self-control, asceticism, generosity, non-violence, constancy in virtue should serve as a means of one's success. Bhagavad Gita, being a part of Mahabharata, preaches us to meet the obligation and duties of life, always keeping in view the spiritual background of human existence, which is the manifestation of an ultimate and the infinite. However, even at the individual level, there were some significant contributions by the religious prophet with regard to the basis of human rights. Mahavir, the founder of Jainism, said that the foundation of human freedom in its deepest sense is truth, known as Anikantev, which demonstrates the idea of the relative pluralism and many sides of truths. This attitude towards truth gives a profound implication for various aspects of human life, that is personal and social. During Chandragupta Maurya regime, Kautilya, in his Arthashastra, which depicted the political, social, and economic codes of conduct, laid down certain principles of the law of punishment as the foundation of social existence. These principles then become the basis of the law against inter alia, illegal arrest and detention, custodial death, ill treatment of women such as rape, inequality of gender, corrupt judicial system, etc. The legendary king Ashoka in the post-Kalinga regime had shown the seeds of a humanitarian society, which He desired that all animate beings should have security, self-control, peace of mind and joyousness. Inhuman treatment or torture of prisoners were prohibited in Ashoka administration. After this, let's talk about the medieval concept of Indian human rights. Thus, the influence of ancient Indian Dharma, with its universalistic and humanistic strengths, the contribution of Hindu scriptures and a noted scholar and kings, tends to underscore the historical reality that the concept of rights is neither gift from the West nor a typical Western monopoly of wisdom. Its origins are as much rooted in ancient Hindu civilization. However, one cannot possibly ignore the violation of human rights in ancient India, which mainly stems from the then social stratification. Social life was largely stratified into the four major divisions, that is, the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras. The rights and duties of the aforesaid classes were determined according to their assigned duty. The Indian framework of rights was essentially derived from Swadharma. The Brahmins, due to their hegemony over the caste system, deny the right to the lower caste and untouchables and other deprived sections of the society. So, there was violations of their rights and dignity. But in general, the ancient Indian society was peaceful within the moral codes of conduct of the society, provided by religion, which in due course of time hegemonized all sections of the society within its rules of the game. After this, let's talk about the pre-independence concept of Indian human rights. The formation of the Indian National Congress in the year 1885 also gave a new vista of the cause of human rights which is being violated by the British rule in India. Influenced by the reformist movement in different parts of the world for the cause of freedom, the Nehru Report of 1928, the first commitment of civil liberties, and the Karachi resolutions of 1930, the most important commitment to individual and group rights, were prepared. These were included in the Constitution of Free India as fundamental rights in Part 3 and Directive Principle of State Policy in Part 4 respectively. The Indian intellectuals generally accept the view that rights are not over and above the states. Rather, they are given from the state itself. To them, rights of an individual must be balanced with the interests of the society as a whole. The good of each, as they argue, must contribute to the good of all. During the struggle against colonial rule, Indian nationalist movement emphasized upon political rights as the reaction against the repressive and the exploitative character of the British rule. But the nationalist ideology also emphasized on social and economic rights, as evident from their inclusion in the Constitution of India formulated by the leaders of the national movement. Even though the Indian nationalist leader adopted the Western framework of political rights, they rejected the Lockean theory of natural rights. They consider rights as a gift from the state, hence are not absolute, and their enjoyment is conditioned by a number of factors, that is social, economic, and political. The rights of different groups and society are counterbalanced by the rights of the state and its obligation to the weaker section of the society. After this, let's talk about the post-independence concept of Indian human rights. The Constitution of India, which came into force in 1950, is an eloquent testimony of the nation's deep commitment to human rights. It proclaims basic human rights and fundamental freedoms and guarantees their enjoyment by all, irrespective of caste, color, sex, or religion. It has also created legal institutions to enforce the fundamental rights comprising liberty, equality, and social justice. Since independence, India sought to institutionalize its commitment to human rights by a deliberate choice of an open society and a democratic polity based on universal adult franchise, respect for the dignity of the individual, the rule of law, and the multi-party system. India has installed parliamentary institutions where free and fair elections are held at local, state, and central levels. It has built mechanisms for peaceful and orderly changes of government in response to popular will of the people. These mechanisms have been tested time and again and have provided their effectiveness. The government mechanisms such as police, security forces are also working to safeguard people's life, liberty, and security. Impartial and independent judiciary, which is the custodian of the people's rights, is also promoting and protecting them. Public interest litigation, a new tool of the Indian judiciary, has also been instituted for this cause. After this, let's talk about the contemporary issues of human rights. In our country, majority of the population live in rural areas as they are poor and illiterate and are not aware of their basic rights. They are easily exploited by the better of people. So, there have been large-scale violations of their rights by moneylenders, landlords, petty politicians, tribal leaders, rural elites. Child labor, bonded labor, and migrant labor are some of the examples of this factor. At the societal level, we have also a different picture altogether. There are a number of cases of communal riot, caste conflict, dowry deaths, social violence, and criminalization of politics, and so on. The government of India has also taken measures and a step by enacting appropriate laws and creating statutory institutions with the objective to safeguard the legitimate rights of the people in general, the minorities, the Dalits, the backwards, the women and children in particular. Establishment of separate statutory institutions like the National Minority Commissions, the National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes, the National Commission for Women, National Commission for Child, among others, are some of the positive measures in this regard. The Government of India has also constituted the National Human Rights Commission for the promotion and protection of human rights of citizen and individual. The commission, which came into existence on 12 October 1993, is an autonomous statutory body which has the authority to deal with the cases of human rights violation. The State Human Rights Commission established under the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993 are also mandated to follow the same suit. After this, I would like to mention the conclusion. The Indian perception of human rights does not emanate from the theory of natural rights doctrine of the West. Rather, it has its own base in ancient Indian culture and civilization. The Indian vision of rights emphasizes not only the individual, but also the total person, a person whose interdependent rights and duties are determined by his or her positions within a hierarchical network of relationship. The impact of Islamic religion, Renaissance and reforms movements, British colonialism and the nationalist ideology play a vital role in the formation and the practice of human rights in India.